Hello and welcome back to the channel. I was all set to show you anyway how to change the front brake pads here, but then riding to work this week I noticed a funny kind of feel to the brake lever. So it's time to investigate anyway, clean things up, and let me show you what I mean. What I found is you would pull the brake lever gently and get a small amount of braking, but then you'd have to pull it much harder to go further and it would suddenly give. So it's like a two-stage braking, a gentle pull and then it gives and you get a lot more, which isn't right. It should be a smooth pull all the way through. And after looking into how it works with the piston here, I think I've figured out the problem, which is that the piston's on the outside. So as you pull the brake lever, you're pushing brake fluid down this hose, which makes the piston come out and pushes the pad in contact with the disc. But the way that the back pad comes into contact is that the whole caliper here moves in and out. And if that's got a bit stiff, because these bolts, these pins, sliding pins have got a little bit dirty or something, that's going to get a sort of a two-stage process, which isn't quite right. We'll start by loosening these two bolts. That's fairly stiff. This is why you need sockets and spanners, because you can't get in there with that. Let's go there. This bracket is firmly mounted to the forks, but the caliper is mounted with a sliding pin. So we can remove the caliper bracket, but before we do, I would recommend getting yourself a piece of string, which you just hang over the mirror or handlebars or something. And then when you've removed the caliper, you can hang it from the string instead of hanging it from the hose. There we go, just tie that on. And we'll get a bit more play in the hose by undoing this 8mm bolt here, which is holding the hose and the reflector to the side of the fork. There we go. See, the caliper's now hanging safely on the string. It's not hanging on its own hose for support there. Here's a brilliant idea. Let's put it up there so we can get a proper look at it. Right. Now the caliper's off, we can have a good look. You can see the brake pads straight away here, and just comparing them to the new ones, there's no reason to change that early, the thickness there. Well, we can still see the little grooves, and there's still plenty of lining left there on the brake pads compared to the new ones. So there's really no point changing them early. Now straight away I can see something quite interesting. I think that this pin here is bent like that. I don't know if it's easy to see on camera, but this bracket I don't think is perfectly parallel with the pads. And you know what causes that, don't you? Yeah, so maybe I can bend it back, or maybe just replace that part. Let's take it apart and have a look. So the pads are held in place by two fasteners. Here's one. This is a 8mm bolt here, and the pads are actually spring loaded. There's a spring in the bottom, which you'll see in a second. So I'm going to put my thumb on them and just hold them down a little bit so they don't pop out and we're not pushing against the spring as we turn. There we go. So that's the lower pad retaining bolt. Then the other one is a rare hex key. Not many on this bike, but there is one here. This is a 6mm hex. It's quite tight. This one, as you can see, it fastens it holds the big clip end of this brake pad. The two pads have a very different shape, so you can tell them apart. But the inner one, that is the one that's going to go inside the wheel, has this big C-shaped hook on the end, and the outer one just doesn't, just has this sort of nub on the end there. And then inside you can see, let's turn it up a little, maybe inside there you can see the spring that the pads push against. Grab the spanner. They push against when you push them into the caliper. The pistons are a little bit extended. I'm surprised there's three. For some reason I had in mind that there were two, one for the back brake and one for the front, but maybe there's two for the front and one for the back. Yeah, this seems quite a neat way to retract the pistons, just a pair of pliers like this. But what you want is to retract them quite evenly. You don't want to push on one side more than the other. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there we go. If you're pushing the pistons in at an angle, there's a danger you could scar them a bit. Kind of very carefully squeeze, gently squeeze on the front brake. There we go. Yeah, and I can see this piston is obviously the one squeezing out. Interesting. And the back brake, that one. Well, what about that one then? Is it stuck? Yeah, okay. Yeah, as I hold it, I can feel both the outer two pistons are moving with the front brake lever, and the inner one is just for the back pedal. That makes sense because it would have to push evenly, wouldn't it? So the piston pushes the outer pad against the brake disc, and then the caliper, as you continue to pull, the caliper pulls itself over that way and pulls the inner pad against the other side of the brake disc, which means it has to slide nice and smoothly on these two sliding pins. So I'm now going to try and just pull the bracket off those sliding pins. And I've got rubber seals here to stop the dust getting in. And there we go. Now I can see the mounting bracket with its two pins. And yep, I would say most definitely these two pins are not concentric. That one has definitely been bent. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but these two pins are definitely not in line with each other. You can remove the sliding pin like this. That's a 12mm. Careful not to get any dirt on this, because any bit of grit in there would wear it down. And I think that's pretty straight. This is a split washer on there. I think that's pretty good, and I think it's clearly the bracket mostly. It's hard to hold it straight for you, but I think the bracket is angled. So I'm going to try and with my limited tools here, a little bit of persuading, or as Big Clive would call it, tappy tap tap. I don't know if I stand any chance with this, but we'll give it a try. Can't see much difference yet. Let's try a little more. Okay, I've put it in the vise and given it a whack with a hammer and made what I think we can charitably call a small improvement. This little shim goes on here like this, and this pin, by the way, has a flat bit there, a key, so it'll only go in the certain way. And then if we put the wonky one back in, yeah, I mean, I think it's you're very kind if you tell me that it's better. I may well buy a new one of these, but let's go for now. See how it works. I'm going to give these pins a clean. And then re-grease them with this. This is just a high temperature grease lubricant made for brakes, not just any old lube for brake parts because it needs to get very hot. Being careful not to get them dirty. Okay, let me put that to one side for a minute. Now things are about to get a bit more messy, so I've got an old basin here that you can see I've used for this purpose before. And first of all, I'm going to clean the edge of the pistons with brake fluid only. Don't go using WD-40 or something to strip off the lubrication on the pistons because they need to retract nice and cleanly. So that's great. Yeah, just a bit of brake fluid around the exposed bit. I mean, these pistons have never come all the way out because the brake pads are still apparently fairly new. So I'm just going to use that to clean off the dirt. You know, and anytime you see a bit of metal that shiny on a machine, you know it hasn't had any wear. Or it's had a lot of wear perhaps. Right, not going to put them out any further. In fact, I'm going to get myself some clean brake fluid. Remembering, of course, brake fluid is an effective paint stripper, so if you've splashed any on the bike there, be sure to wash it off. We will give the bike a rinse just in case after we've finished. Yeah, that looks good to me. So I'm going to fully retract these pistons. There we go. And then go about cleaning the rest of the caliper. I'm going to take out the spring, partly just so that if it does pop out, I've remembered which way around it went. So we've got the thin bits over there on the right, and this just sits over that bar there inside. I could take that out. Now I'm going to reinstall the mounting bracket because I don't want to squirt brake fluid, brake cleaner into these sliding holes here. Right now already I can feel that slides better than before. I'm getting these rubber boots. Just give it a good squeeze. Now the rubber seals are covering the pins well. Okay, and doing my very best to keep you out of harm's way, we're going to use some brake cleaner and a little brush to clean out the inside of the caliper. Boy, that's disgusting. Right, what about that? That's pretty good. This face of the caliper is supposed to be clean and shiny, but the inside there is painted, so I'm happy with that. Obviously you want to give the whole thing a wash just as we wash the bike at the end. You can get a new spring when you replace the pads. It does seem like it's a part that is likely to break. We can also give the old pads a clean as we will be reusing them. Didn't quite intend to do this handheld, but I have. Right, I'm going to give my hands a good wash and come back. Okay, it's time to reassemble. Reassemble, Stephanie. So, the spring goes in there. There we go, that way around. Great. And I will put the tiniest bit of grease on the contact area of the spring. Now, be warned, I would rather put no grease on the brakes than risk the slightest possibility of getting any grease on the friction surfaces. Obviously that would be extremely stupid, but if you don't grease the brakes, they can vibrate and squeal. So I'm putting a tiny bit on the bits of the spring there. There we go. That will actually contact the back of the pads. A tiny bit of grease on the back of the pad, and it's quite handy to reuse the old one because you can see where it made contact. Not much, because we also don't want any blobs flying off and going where they shouldn't. This peg here rubs against the bracket. The inner pad goes in there, and that peg there registers on the caliper bracket. The two blue sort of nubs there are pushing on the spring, and the hole here for the retaining bolt to go through is there. Now you will actually have to push the pad down, as I am there, to put the retaining pin back in. Well spotted. As I was just about to say, you do need to put both pads in before you can put in the pad retaining bolt. Yeah, on the inner pad, I'm just going to put the tiniest, well that's too much, the tiniest bit of grease on the inside of this C shape here. I mean the outer pad, and this one's the inner, which goes there. That bit will go around there, but we can first install the retaining bolt. So I see, yeah, one pad at a time. We'll go, I don't know if you can see that inside there, it's gone, there we go, through the hole on the outer pad. Yeah, that's it. You have to kind of push the pads down against the spring to allow the bolt to go through. But not too hard, or you drag the pad with the bolt. Okay. Now both pads are held in place by that lower pin, but the upper one just needs this top hat thingy to go on there. And that's the 6mm Allen key. Great, that is looking good. Okay, let's put it back on the wheel. At some point in the process I've lost my bit of string. Not quite sure how that happened. Right, we'll fit that on. The brake pads are going easily over the disc because I've pulled them apart. They would have been a much tighter fit if we hadn't retracted the pistons. Now I haven't got a torque setting for these, so let's just do what feels right. And check after a few miles. Not forgetting, of course, the little bracket here which holds the hoses tight. Now I'm just going to perform a little idiot check. Is there anything left unattached? No? All good. The pads are in there. There's no oil on them. There are no vital parts left on the floor. Idiot check passed. Now I think you can probably see better than me with that angle, but as I squeeze the front brake lever, I'm gonna, there we go, bring the pads into contact with the disc there. Right, should be ready. Let's give it a little try. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I will be replacing that bracket because I couldn't quite get it straight, and one piston's coming out more than the other. There was no point replacing the brake pads because they still have plenty of life left on them. I will now go for a very careful test drive, and assuming I have edited and uploaded this video, you will know that I survived. So I will thank you for watching another video, and I will see you on the next one.